Mr. Sanjay Kapoor, former CEO of Bharti Airtel and an industry expert in his own right. Sanjay, good morning. Thanks so much for joining in. I think that's the question on everybody's mind, and which is why your opinion out here is very important. Do you think what an Idea and a Bharti have done to their data pack prices is a start of a long-drawn price war in the data space?
So let's go back to history to begin with, and you're absolutely right that when you look back about 3-4 years, you had a lot of players entering the market by way of new licensing, and at that time voice was more dominant. And when that was happening, all the incumbent players had a very large dependence on voice and actually held on to their pricing for about between 4 and 6 months to see how the networks pan out, how the strategy pan out. Of course, when they saw that 1 second granularity was very damaging, then they started reacting because nobody wanted to give up their market share. And rightfully so, any part of the world, you will see incumbents trying to protect their turf and not give up the hard-earned revenues and customers that they have amassed over years. Now here, the game changes and data comes into play, with RIL knocking the doors and trouble rumors of them entering the market very shortly. Now in data, unlike voice, there are two issues that will pan out which will determine who the winners are. One is clearly affordability, which will never go out of the Indian environment, and therefore pricing will play a role. And the other will be the experience. Unlike voice, the experience on data is really paramount to determine who the winner is. To me, will Reliance come with both aspects of the game? I think the answer could be yes, where they'll play a little bit on pricing because they have nothing to lose, and also augment the capacities and allow the customer to consume more. On the other hand, I'm sure they're not playing this game only for price, because they know that ultimate winner on data is going to come out of the customer experience. So I'm a little surprised by this move to say, without seeing the entrant come in whole hog and his experience gauged by me, why would I react in piecemeal? So is it knee-jerk? And I'm not taking away the intelligence of any one of the incumbent operators. I'm sure they're watching the market like hawks. But right now, the move seems a little tentative and slightly premature, because it only is for data. It doesn't entangle the voice part of it. And the other one, it is without knowing what the new operator is offering in terms of experience. So I think without having a full picture to go and tamper one piece of your pricing element, maybe a trifle early, and may not give you the results, and the consumer may not perceive it holistically when the new operator comes in as a challenger in future. And of course, it's dilutive. It's dilutive for the whole industry because it sets a new low benchmark for the challenger. And if that is true, then obviously if he's going to play on price, he's going to set his table a little below this benchmark. So overall, it cannot be accretive for the industry. It can be only dilutive. So I'm surprised with the move that it's piecemeal, and probably it's trifle early.
Yeah, indeed. Like you said, knee-jerk reaction at that to best combat the threat from Reliance Jio, or upcoming one at that. But Sanjay, what happens? I mean, would you say that eventually volume growth in data usage is going to be able to be enough to compensate for the realizations dent with this move and this kind of price slashes which have come about?
Look, first of all, in India, the tariffs on data per MB have been really falling from about 35, 36 paisa per MB realization. It is now hovering between 20 paisa and 23 paisa, which according to me is very, very low. To offer video grade networks at that price is going to be challenging for everybody. And data the world over, the moment it gets consumed more and more by the consumer, the price realization for the pack never commensurates with the data consumption that the consumer has. So there are two types of changes that happen. One, the consumer has a propensity to consume infinite amount of data. That's how it seems. The youngsters truly have an appetite to consume infinite amount of data. The second is the form factor of data is undergoing a change. What was pictures became video, what was standard definition became high definition, What is high definition is going to become 4K, and each one of them is a 10x to a 100x multiplier for the same content. So overall, if I'm a consumer and I'm going to consume 10 gigs of data instead of 1 gig of data, I'm not going to give you 10 times the price, right? And that's the phenomena the world over. So you're absolutely right. This is not going to result in the capacities that I create to be completely compensated by a price increase for the consumers. So they'll have to be smarter ways of doing it. Although I'm sure all of them are working on bringing their cost structures down, but the amount of data that the customer is going to consume is going to surprise all of us, and he's not going to be willing to pay the increase of data commensurating on price terms. So I think that's a challenge that's going to remain with the industry. I think that's what RIL will try very hard. What they will try to do is increase the consumption, because they've created enhanced capacities, and therefore if a consumer is consuming say 700-800 megabytes of data today, they would want it to become a 10-12 gigabytes, so that the existing capacities of the operators truly come under a challenge. And obviously the price equation will set in because they don't have any existing revenues, and they can go down and create a habit around high consumption and affordable pricing, and that puts the whole industry, and if they bundle voice inside data along with it, well, that'll create a new challenge for everybody. So I guess it's an interesting times. I would have waited for those guys to come in and then act holistically, but I'm sure there is some wisdom in what the operators have done, and they would understand it better.
That's a very, very interesting point, Sanjay, and glad you brought it up, because you understand the industry perspective so well. I have two simple questions. One is, a lot of people who are experiencing Rel Jio data services right now are raving about it. The quality, the uninterrupted moves, no buffering, etc. Do you think it's also a function of very limited user base right now, and will that slacken a bit if indeed the user base expands multifold?
Look, I am by training and experience a practitioner, and I'm not a pure theoretician or a consultant. So all I can tell you is that when the networks do not have full utilization of capacity, they behave very differently compared to when they are loaded with capacity. The same networks behave very, very differently, and existing operators have gone through that humongous challenge over the last couple of years, where their networks have not been able to support the demand in the marketplace. However, while I say that, there is another challenge, that no network can be built to perfection on day one. You know, there are elevators, there are basements, there are nooks and corners, and to really fine tune a network to cater to a customer who's satisfied every part of the city, every part of the colony, every part of the building is not an easy job, and it happens over time. So whether it's RIL or anybody else, they will have to go through that experiential curve, and perfection and optimization of the network will take a couple of years for anybody. Of course, they're entering with no customers, or probably a few million customers to begin with, and therefore their network will seem all singing, all dancing, and will pose a challenge. And I'm sure, because they've taken so much time, they've been trying to perfect the consumer experience. I think that company has realized that if they have to be a challenger in an environment where incumbents are very strong, then the only differential on data truly is a customer experience. And I think they've been trying to amass the consumer experience on one side. The other side, they have been trying to play on all 5 pillars of data, which is devices, which is content and services, which is access, which is storage, and which is analytics. So I think they're coming in with a wholesome play. So let's see. I wish them good luck, but Rome was not built in one day.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, indeed. In that sense, it's like the movies, right? The customer is always the last and final word.
More so in this business, for sure. That, the other point that we were talking about yesterday, Ayesha, is whether, and Sanjay, your thoughts out here, both me and Ayesha were talking about it, that will a lower price point for the existing players lead to more data consumption by their customers, and therefore offset the kind of losses that come in because of a lower price point? Because typically right now, a college going kid, let's say hypothetically, loses 1 GB of data because he's only has that much of money. I mean, you know the drill. I'm sorry explaining it, but I'm just, for the benefit of viewers, I'm explaining it. If indeed the price points goes down, he probably would want to consume 2 GB. Do you think that happens?
Oh yes, of course. And I just explained to you that it is by virtue of additional consumption, and it is also by virtue of form factor, which is changing very quickly. World over, 90% of the data that's going to get consumed will be video, and transformation from words and pictures to video is a major jump on data consumption for every individual. That an average Indian will use 1000x of data compared to what he uses today, I don't even challenge that figure. I think that figure will get midgeted over time. So I think that's not a concern. What truly has to happen is that we need to build networks that will offer that experience, so that I'm encouraged to use it more and more. Coming down to your packs, for example, earlier you had 1 GB packs and 2 GB packs and 5 GB packs coming from some of the existing incumbent operators, and you saw that the prices were coming down. It's not that they were reducing the tariffs, it was that the granularity on those packs was coming to an end. So unlike voice, if I have a 1 minute granularity, 1 minute pulse, and you consume 30 seconds of call, you cannot consume the balance 30 because you forfeited it for that call. But in data packs, it doesn't happen like that. If I've given you 1 GB, if you discontinue today or right now, you can again start at the next moment and then start consuming. So what happens is, people who were consuming 300 MB started consuming 500, 700, 800, till person noticed that he's not going to leave anything on the table. He's going to complete the full 1 GB, and operators just throttle you after that. So he knows when to end the session, right? And therefore, if you increase the pack, and that's what's happened today. So operators are not asking for more money. What they're saying is, we are giving you extra data. So if I am still going to pay 600 rupees and instead of 4 GB get 10 GB, I'm going to have a party. And like I said, propensity of youngsters to consume data is absolutely unlimited. These guys can just go on consuming data because they spend 6-8 hours of their day in front of gadgets. And therefore, I think 10 GB or 20 GB or 50 GB is not going to be a concern. My concern is that wireless networks nowhere in the world are designed to offer such like data consumption. Nowhere in the world. It is fixed line which takes over, and therefore wherever wireless grew, wired grew, right? But in India, unfortunately, wire is not growing because that investment is really, really very slow, and at some stage in our data life cycle, it will begin to bite us. Right now, I hope that they can deliver these promises of giving 10 GB and 20 GB of data on a wireless network without a completely fiber backhaul. That's going to be a big challenge going forward. So as long as they can retain the consumer experience, well, consumers are going to enjoy it and have a party.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.